Hey, what's going on, everybody? My name is Matt Jarbo. This is 3 Buck Theater, and as we move into the third month of the year, March is loaded, and I mean loaded, with a plethora of movies to check out and a few, well, you're probably going to want to avoid. Here are 8 movies you need to see in March and 3 to just forget about entirely. Now, first up is Gringo. Gringo tells the story of a mild-mannered American businessman, Harold Soyinka. Crossing the line from citizen to criminal, Harold tangles with duplicitous business partners, Mexican drug lords, international mercenaries, and the DEA. As he attempts to survive in one of the most dangerous places on Earth, the question lingers, is this ordinary man in way over his head, or is he 2 steps ahead? The film stars David Oyelowo, Charlize Theron, Amanda Seyfried, Joel Edgerton, Thandie Newton, and is directed by Nash Edgerton. It releases on March 9th, 2018.
Really believe in God?
Of course I believe in God. What kind of person does not believe in God?
Jumping over into movies spawned from video games territory, we get the release of Tomb Raider, the long-awaited release of the Alicia Vikander-led film that is an adaptation of the 2013 game of the same name. This, of course, also is a reboot of the film franchise, which we haven't seen in the last 15 years since Tomb Raider and the Cradle of Life hit the silver screen. But this time around, Lara Croft is 21 years old. She is not quite the Tomb Raider yet, and she's going out trying to find what happened to her father. She leaves everything she knows behind in a search for her dad's last known destination, a fabled tomb on a mythical island that might be somewhere off the coast of Japan. But her mission will not be an easy one. Just reaching the island will be extremely treacherous. Suddenly, the stakes couldn't be higher for Lara, who, against the odds, armed with only her sharp mind, blind faith, and inherently stubborn spirit, must learn to push herself beyond the limits as she journeys into the unknown. If she survives the perilous adventure, it could be the making of her earning of the name Tomb Raider. Tomb Raider opens in theaters on March 16th. Now, this next movie I am very much excited for. A remake of the Charles Bronson classic Death Wish is not one that I would normally be on board with, seeing as the original is just too amazing to begin with. But this time around, we have got the film led by Bruce Willis, who is no stranger to action films, as well as being helmed by Eli Roth, who loves to bring death and gore to the silver screen, and the screenplay itself is written by Joe Carnahan. And those 3 elements combined make me excited to see what's going to happen. Where Dr. Paul Kersey, who is played by Bruce Willis, a surgeon who only sees the aftermath of Chicago violence when it's rushed into his ER. That is until his wife and daughter are viciously attacked in their suburban home. With the police overloaded with crimes, Paul, burning for revenge, hunts his family's assailants to deliver justice. As the anonymous slayings of criminals grabs the media attention, the city wonders if this deadly vigilante is a guardian angel or a grim reaper. Fury and fate collide in the intense action thriller remake of Death Wish. I will fully admit that I'm stoked for this one. Obviously, with current political tensions, it's going to be a bit controversial, but I'm hoping that it's also just going to be an escape into the cinemas to watch a lot of people get shot up. And I don't know about you, but I'll definitely be there on March 2nd when the film opens. Also opening on March 2nd is the long-awaited erotic thriller Red Sparrow, and I want to very much emphasize the word erotic. This is Jennifer Lawrence coming out of her shell, so to speak, and really trying to show that she is an adult that is worthy to be treated like an adult, and this movie is probably going to be the one that's either going to make or break that bad girl persona. Now, the story is based on a book of the same name, and it's all around Dominika Urgarova, who, when she faces a career-ending injury, Dominika and her mother are facing bleak and uncertain future. That's when she finds herself manipulated into becoming the newest recruit for Sparrow School, a secret intelligence service that trains exceptional young people like her to use their bodies and minds as weapons. After enduring the perverse and sadistic training process, she emerges as the most dangerous Sparrow the program has ever produced. Dominica must now reconcile the person she was with the power she now commands, with her own life and everyone she cares about at risk, including an American CIA agent who tries to convince her he is the only person she can trust. Now, this Francis Lawrence directed film is a very hard R, complete with, from my understanding, graphic nudity. So if you are a person under the age of 17, you probably won't be allowed to see it, and if you are a strict fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and somehow think that this is a prequel film to Avengers Age of Ultron, you are going to be sorely, sorely disappointed. However, if you're a Jennifer Lawrence fan who wants something that's a bit more palatable than last year's Mother, this is probably the film for you.
She's a sparrow. You only matter because of what you can do for them. Work with me.
Moving over from erotic thriller to in-your-face kaiju versus mech action, we've got Pacific Rim Uprising, which opens on March 23rd, 2018. And this movie is a sequel, the long-awaited sequel to Guillermo del Toro's 2013 film, Pacific Uprising. But this time around, things are a little bit different. Stephen DeKnight is directing. It stars John Boyega, and Charlie Hunnam is not returning, but what we know now is that Boyega stars as the rebellious Jake Pentecost, a once promising Jaeger pilot whose legendary father gave his life to secure humanity's victory against the monstrous kaiju. Jake has since abandoned his training only to become caught up in the criminal underworld, but when an even more unstoppable threat is unleashed to tear through our cities and bring the world to its knees, he is given one last chance to live up to his father's legacy by his estranged sister. Mako Mori, who is leading the brave new generation of pilots that has grown up in the shadow of the war, as they seek justice for the fallen. Their only hope is to unite together in a global uprising against the forces of extinction. Now, I don't quite know if this is going to live up to the awesomeness that was the first film in 2013, but this also feels to me like they are trying to build a franchise off of it, which is one of the reasons why the CG looks a little bit more cartoonish, it looks a little bit more palatable, and it's going to be something that's going to be used to push a lot of merchandising. Again, I'm not against it, I just hope that the movie is definitely good. If you are concerned about the person behind the camera, Stephen DeKnight was the creator and showrunner of Spartacus, as well as the showrunner of the first season of Daredevil. So if that doesn't get you a little bit pumped up in terms of excitement for this film, I don't know what's gonna. Well, maybe outside giant monsters and giant robots fighting each other.
One way to find out.
20 years in the future.
Now, this next movie is one that I am wholly excited for, and it has everything to do with the way Wes Anderson makes animated films. While I'm not a gigantic Wes Anderson fan overall, the way he does animation always intrigued me. The Fantastic Mr. Fox was a great film, and Isle of Dogs looks to be the same. Now, this is a story that follows a young boy on an epic search for his lost canine companion in Japan. All about in the future, the dogs of Japan have been sent to a garbage island. This boy wants to go save his dog, and the dogs that are there, voiced of course obviously by huge American actors, are going to help him on the journey. It looks very interesting in terms of the visual aesthetic, and I think it's going to be pretty downright funny and heartwarming, and maybe possibly even gut-wrenching. I'm actually going into this film very much wanting it to kind of touch on every emotion that's available, and I really hope that it does. This one will open up alongside Pacific Rim Uprising on Friday, March 23rd.
The little pilot.
Now, if you're looking for something a little bit more on the scary side or the thriller side, Steven Soderbergh has you covered. Unsane comes out on March 23rd as well, and this is a movie that, if for nothing else, you want to see because of how Soderbergh shot the film. Now, the Claire Foy-led movie is all about a young woman who is involuntarily committed to a mental institution where she is confronted by her greatest fear. But is it real or a product of her delusion? It sounds interesting, the trailers look pretty good, but the most compelling part of this to me, as a filmmaker myself, is the fact that the entire movie was shot in 4K from an iPhone 7. This is something I want to see play out on the big screen, very similar to how Crank 1 in 2006 was the first theatrical film shot entirely on prosumer Canon cameras. And it's when you see this type of filmmaking element brought into the big screen, brought into theaters, gets me excited because it shows you that you really can shoot a movie on anything. And if anyone out there is going to show us how it's done, clearly that is Steven Soderbergh.
Do you know how many calls the cops get like that every week?
Those are from crazy people.
And the last movie this month you've got to see. Of course you know what I'm talking about. Ready Player One. The Steven Spielberg directed adaptation of Ernie Cline's very prolific novel is one that has every pop culture junkie from the 1980s salivating with excitement. Now, this film centers on a young outcast named Wade Watts. In the near future, Watts escapes his daily drudgery by logging on to an online world known as the Oasis. When the game's billionaire founder dies, he offers players his fortune as the prize in a virtual treasure hunt. Watts gets in on the action, but soon finds himself facing off against corporate foes who will go to any lengths to get the money, both in the real world and in the Oasis. Now, this movie is an adaptation and has already shown us from the trailers that they are deviating from Cline's book quite a bit. That does have me a little bit concerned, but that being said, Zach Penn came in to work on the screenplay. Zach Penn wrote the first two X-Men movies as well as the original draft for the Avengers, which was what Joss Whedon used to come up with his script for that one in 2012. So that, combined with Spielberg and his iconic vision, I think is going to give us something wholly wonderful and also groundbreaking just in terms of motion capture and the world that they've shown us. Never mind the fact that there's going to be a ton of references, a ton of Easter eggs all throughout the movie because, well, quite frankly, that's the entire point of Ready Player One, is the hunting of the Easter eggs. So this is one that comes out right at my birthday, right on March 29th, and I will be there Thursday night preview screening, popcorn in hand, drink in hand, ready to go into a world of pure imagination.
Are you willing to fight? Help us save the Oasis.
Now, while there's been a lot of movies to check out this month, there are a couple that maybe won't be so good. Maybe it won't be so good. Here are three you're probably going to want to avoid. The first one is Acrimony. Now, this movie is written and directed by Tyler Perry, so it's definitely going to pull in Tyler Perry's audience, but just based on the trailers alone, it looks like garbage. This story is all about a faithful wife, played by Taraji P. Henson, tired of standing by her devious husband, is enraged when it becomes clear she has been betrayed. Yeah, it's a standard revenge story. This is the kind of thing we've seen before. I don't think this movie's breaking any new ground. As I said, the trailer is pretty god-awful. I would say go see it at your own risk. Definitely not a date movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it is Tyler Perry, and Tyler Perry's fans are clearly going to look the other way due to their blind love of that man.
You don't think he knows? Every damn breath in his body.
Back in the mid-2000s, we were granted a great little horror thriller by the name of The Strangers, all about a family trying to survive a home invasion by masked strangers. And it was good. It was a lot of good. But now we're getting this one here called The Strangers Pray at Night. And I cannot, in good conscience, recommend this. Even if you're a horror fan, it looks pretty terrible. This is all about a family's road trip that takes a dangerous turn when they arrive at a secluded mobile home park to stay with some relatives, and they find it mysteriously deserted. Under the cover of darkness, three masked psychopaths pay them a visit to test the family's every limit as they struggle to survive. So, an abandoned mobile home park is the setting of this sequel to a home invasion, Purge-like story. No thanks, I'll pass.
But we've just started.
And finally this month, I cannot in good conscience recommend A Wrinkle in Time. And I know that is going to get me a lot of flack in the comments, and that is entirely okay. Now, this Walt Disney produced adaptation of the classic 1963 fantasy novel by Madeleine L'Engle follows the story of Meg Murray, a young girl traumatized by the disappearance of her scientist father years before. She finds herself on an interplanetary journey with a schoolmate and her younger brother to find her father. They are aided by a trio of supernatural beings, Mrs. What's-It, Mrs. Who, and Mrs. Witch. And yeah, the description of this movie is about as effective as the marketing campaign has been for it. What this movie is ultimately relying on is a lot of colorful images to try to tell you a story, as well as putting Oprah Winfrey and Reese Witherspoon and Mindy Kaling at the forefront of the marketing, especially Oprah, trying to use that as a way to solidify that this is going to be a good movie. Early reactions released today on social media, and they were mixed to say the best. The people that liked it, they liked it. The people that didn't like it said pretty much my thoughts all along. The way the marketing went about this movie, ultimately, is showing you a lot of fluff and a lot of flair without a lot of substance, and that is the criticisms that are very much levied at A Wrinkle in Time. I do hope I'm wrong. I will be admitting that. But this is one that I will not be seeing in theaters, and I'll probably end up checking it out when it comes to Netflix later on this year. Alright guys, that wraps up 8 movies to see in March and 3 movies to not. I hope you guys liked the list, and I want to know what you think. Did I get some right? Did I get some wrong? Did I miss any? Be sure to thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, and check back often for more movie news from me. My name is, of course, Matt Jarbo. This has been $3 Buck Theater. I'll talk to you all later. Have yourself a fantastic day, and peace out.